we can admit it. A big win against the Giants, a margin of victory we hadn't seen in a little while. And then a great big win against the Ravens, a margin of victory that we hadn't seen in a very long while. And against a supposed AFC contender to boot. You and I, we're back on board. The mainstream media, however, including PFF, well, they're not. But there are a couple of observations that I think we can take away and say, look, the Chiefs should not just be favored to win this game. The Chiefs, if things are executed, could win this game by a very large margin. We get this from PFF storyline of the game, building momentum in the AFC. Both the Chiefs and Jags closed out September playing inspired ball. After a rough 0-2 start to start the year, Kansas City has marched through the Giants and Ravens in dominant fashion. Now the Chiefs hope to ride that wave into Jacksonville, against a Jaguars team that is also building hype following a strong victory over the 49ers. Powered by an opportunistic defense and with a knack for creating takeaways, we'll talk about that in a moment, the Jags will aim to prove their worth against a perennial powerhouse in the AFC. Matchups to watch: wide receiver Xavier Worthy versus Jaguars cornerback Jordan Lewis. After missing the majority of the first 3 games of the year, Xavier Worthy's return to the lineup infused new life into the Chiefs' offense. The young receiver posted an 81.0 overall PFF grade against the Ravens, hauling in 5 of his 8 targets for 83 yards and adding another 2 carries for 38 yards. His availability opens up numerous possibilities and big play potential for this offense. Jordan Lewis has been an excellent addition to this Jaguars secondary. He owns the 3rd highest PFF coverage grade, 83.5, at the cornerback position, while seeing snaps both in the slot and outside. This season, he's allowed just 0.7 yards per coverage snap, while holding passers to just a 39.7 passer rating on throws into coverage. Additional news, they mentioned that Patrick Mahomes became the fastest player in the NFL to reach 250 passing touchdowns. Jaguars edge Travon Walker is week to week after his injury versus the 49ers. Now, lest we believe that these Jaguars should just roll over for the Kansas City Chiefs, we do have some interesting team grades for them. These are team grades, so take that for what it's worth. 10th overall, these Jaguars in the NFL. Offense ranking 18th, defense ranking 4th, special teams ranking 26th. A big part of that 4th-ranked defense is the turnovers that this defense has produced through the first 4 weeks of the season. Absolutely phenomenal. You hesitate to say it, but it is very unlikely that that trend continues for the rest of the year because those things just are not sustainable in that fashion. But you and I, we are familiar with people saying things are unsustainable. In order to get a little bit of compare and contrast, the Chiefs are ranked as the 13th team in the NFL with an overall score of 13th, 3 spots lower than the Jaguars. The offense tied for 14th, which is 4 spots higher than the Jaguars, but the defense is tied for 13th, which is 9 spots worse than the Jaguars. The Jaguars boasting the 4th-ranked defense in the NFL, and despite all of Harrison Butker's struggles, the special teams for the Chiefs still ranked 2nd overall. So these teams, at least on paper at this point in the season, are very, very comparably ranked. 10th overall for the Jaguars, 13th overall for the Chiefs. In fact, if you were to say anything, you might say that the Jaguars themselves should be favored in this game versus the Kansas City Chiefs. The Jaguars are 3-0 with a win against the 49ers, who are doing pretty well this season despite being a mash unit. If the Chiefs do decide to sleepwalk through this game, they can absolutely lose it. They can lose this game the same way that they could lose the Chargers game. That said, the one loss that they have on the year was to the Jake Browning-led Bengals. Now, Joe Burrow started that game against the Jaguars, but he did not finish it. In fact, he did not lead the team in passing in that game. It was Jake Browning who led in passing despite having thrown for 3 interceptions in that game. And there we start to have to ask a few questions about the Jaguars' defense. They did turn over Jake Browning 3 times and lose the game. Well, the Jaguars' defense so far this season, in Week 1, forced 3 turnovers. In Week 2, forced 3 turnovers. In Week 3, forced 3 turnovers. But it wasn't that all the way through the season because last week against the 49ers, they forced 4 turnovers. This Jaguars' defense is an absolute turnover machine, and they're still not tearing through people. So that is worth coming to a conclusion for, but we won't get there just yet. The Jaguars, for their defense's part, seem to give up one pretty big day per game. And there's no, at least through the air, and there's no real telling what kind of receiver it's going to be. Teteroa McMillan did for the Panthers, and then you had McAffee for the 49ers, and you had Ja'Marr Chase for the Bengals. Those are different guys, right? So there's no real looking at the Chiefs roster and saying, okay, well, this guy is going to do really well, right? We have a guy that is comparable to Ja'Marr Chase. He's going to tear them up because Ja'Marr Chase did tear them up. That's not necessarily the case because it was also McAffee for the 49ers. Now, the thing we have to ask is, have each of these teams just had one player get hot, or is there a constituent part of the defense for the Jaguars that is able to shut someone down, forcing the entire offense through that safety valve, which has been the individual to have the big day? The Ja'Marr Chase, were they able to shut one other person down and force the offense through Ja'Marr Chase? McAffee, were they able to shut one other person down and force the offense through McAffee? Teteroa McMillan, were they able to shut... Well, there's no one really else there. But you get what I'm saying. Is this a case of one person has a big game, or is it a case of opposing offenses don't have multiple outlets for the ball? Because Patrick Mahomes does. Patrick Mahomes does trust Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju Smith-Schuster has had a pretty good season thus far for the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes does trust Tyquan Thornton. He's going to put a couple in the air for him. He does trust Travis Kelce. He does trust Hollywood Brown. And yes, he does trust Xavier Worthy, recently returned from that Travis Kelce injury. So, could the Chiefs simply get a couple of different targets going and then cause an actual falling out on the Jaguars' defense? The key to this game, in my opinion, is going to sound incredibly rudimentary, and it's 2 parts. But if the Chiefs don't turn the ball over and they don't let Travis Etienne average 6.1 yards per carry, which he has done to this point in the season, they could run away with this thing. The Jaguars have not been blowing people out of the water, and they've been the recipient of at least 3 turnovers in every game that they've played so far this season. It strikes me that if Patrick Mahomes does not throw interceptions and the running backs do not put the ball on the ground, the Jaguars might have a difficult time keeping in this ball game. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on the channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.